William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I welcome you to another Two Hats special of community events. Let's look in and see what's really happening.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you all so much for coming. Looks like we have a few more people that are going to be coming in. That's good. And we'll just pull up chairs as we need them. My name is Jennifer Scripps, and I'm the director of the Office of Cultural Affairs. Who here is already somewhat familiar with the cultural plan or the cultural process? Okay, so some hands, but certainly not all of them. We're going to try to do this meeting in a couple of ways. We'll orient you to the cultural planning process, but then get specific on what we're trying to accomplish and learn today over the next, call it, hour and a half. And then also give you an insight into where this is all going, because it is a long process and y'all are one step of the way. We want you to stick with us, if you will, till September when we are calling it done, which really means we're just beginning the work of implementing it. So again, my name is Jennifer Scripps, and the Office of Cultural Affairs is the city department that supports the arts. And our goal is to create a vital and exciting and hospitable arts environment for the city of Dallas. The last time the city did any citywide arts planning comprehensively was in 2002. And I always say the world has changed a lot since 2002. I didn't have Facebook, and I was still using a Motorola flip phone. And the world just looks nothing in so many ways like it did back then. And that was a really good plan. Dallas did implement a lot of it, and you see that when you're in a building like this. That didn't exist when that plan was done. So we can point to things that came out of that important work. So in an effort to do a cultural plan, we've been doing community engagement since the last week in September. And the Office of Cultural Affairs did a national search for consultants to help us with this work. Our department is very tiny. It's about 2% of the city budget. And to do a citywide conversation like this, we knew we needed resources. Cities all over the country had been doing cultural plans, and we had looked very closely at what had been done in Chicago, in Boston, in LA, in Houston. And we hired Lord Cultural Resources with a team based out of New York, and Priya Surkar is here with us today from Lord. And they helped assemble a team because they also realized we're not in Dallas. We need boots on the ground, as you say. And so Lizzie McWillie is here with BC Workshop, who has done a tremendous wealth of work in the community in Dallas. So we were also building on that collective knowledge, if you will. Is Lisa still here?
No, Hafsa.
Oh, hi, Hafsa. Sorry, I didn't see you back there. You're behind the box. Hafsa's there, and another gentleman named Owen and Thor. So you have a kind of core team of 5 people. Mm-hmm. And they have been really the ones doing a lot of this meeting coordination and data gathering. And I have to tell you that I did a happy dance about an hour ago. We've been totaling up all of these community engagements and surveys and online and in person and in focus groups. And I kind of knew our numbers had been hovering in that 3,800 to 4,000 bracket. But I knew we were over 4,000. And we found out today we have broken the 5,000 bucket and are at 5,100 resident input. So once we did general community meetings all over the city of Dallas, as many neighborhoods as we can touch, all 14 council districts, we have been doing industry focus groups. So we've done dance, we've done theater, we've done music, we've done visual arts. Tonight is a film meeting at the Texas Theater, and it's been in partnership with the Dallas Film Commission. And you all are here because you are here to speak and think about small arts organizations, which is roughly, and none of this is hard and fast, y'all, this is the arts after all, 250,000 budget and smaller. And what we've realized is we need to add a mid-size arts organization bucket meeting, call it 250 to 1 million. So, I see Clyde Valentine nodding back there. He's on the steering committee. We're trying to be very strategic and have more focused conversations right now, recognizing that there's so many different perspectives on this plan that's really important to allow people that time. So that's the purpose of today. I did want to recognize a few other people. The chairman of the Cultural Affairs Commission, John Paul Baptiste, is here. He has probably attended more of these meetings, so he can also share his perspectives if you have questions. And David Fisher, the assistant director with the Office of Cultural Affairs here. Hello, group. And so please participate. This community engagement phase is starting to wrap up, which is kind of hard to believe. Originally, it was going to wrap up the first week in March, and then spring breaks next week. We are now saying it's going to wrap up March 21st. Okay, Lizzie's like, is it ever done? But really and truly, we've got to start to kind of put some stakes in the ground and say, okay, this phase is going to conclude, and we are going to take what we've heard and start to report back to the community and make people start to prioritize with us and put some real milestones about where does Dallas want to go, where do we want to invest, where do we need to set some priorities as a community. That will happen April and May. We will start writing a new cultural plan for Dallas using that wealth of data gathered, which will culminate in a new cultural policy. Think of that as our City of Dallas rule book or playbook for how we manage the sector investments that we make. And God willing, and the creeks don't rise, that will go to council in September. The city's fiscal year is October 1st start. So we'd love to kind of see this work wrap up and then start the new year with a new plan and policy in place. Are there any questions before I turn it over to Priya? And because I always get one more question, this whole plan cost $600,000. $300,000 was privately fundraised. The arts in Dallas have a long tradition, long before my time, of being privately subsidized and supported. And so if you see anybody from the Meadows Foundation, the TI Foundation, the Perot Foundation, the PNC Bank Foundation, or the Hublitzel Foundation, please thank them on behalf of everybody, because some of them really got on board over a year before the work actually started, and the Communities Foundation. So any other questions? I know that was a lot of, then we can get into the fun part. Okay, Priya, take it away.
Thanks, Jennifer. Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. Good to see your faces. Thank you for taking time to come together and lend your voice to the creation of this cultural plan. Jennifer did a fabulous job of describing the process, the overarching process, where we've been and where we're headed. So I'm not going to spend any more time on that, but I do invite you to ask me questions, me or Lizzie, during the meeting or immediately thereafter, if you have any specific questions. I will just focus more on what we're going to talk about today. And I say we talk about, I mean you will talk about, because our job is to listen to what you have to say. Quick show of hands, just to kind of get a read on who is in the room today. So will you raise your hand if you're involved in visual arts? Okay. Performing arts? Okay. All right. Literary arts? Okay. Soul rep. And how about, we've got arts education or studios? Yes, there's one in the back. What about maybe studios or gallery spaces? Anyone involved in that? Okay. And then anyone involved in social practice of any kind? Okay, great. Any other things that I may not mention? Other elements of arts and cultural practice? Okay. Well, we just wanted to kind of get a sense of who's in the room, so we kind of know what we're talking about and a bit of where you're coming from here. So I'll just mention that the kinds of things we're going to ask you to talk about. Essentially, we have you seated at tables so that in these smaller groups it's easier to kind of dig in and talk about certain topics or issues. So we'll ask you to go over some specific questions within a few minutes when we, in your table. But at first, we just kind of want to start to think about, how you think about, how would you describe arts and culture in Dallas? And we have people from across disciplines. So I know it's a very broad question, but just to get the juices flowing, what would you say? Any adjectives or phrases or thoughts that you might have in terms of how you would describe arts and culture in Dallas?
Diverse.
Okay. And Lizzie is taking notes, and she's very fast at writing. Handwriting, yes.
I'd say dynamic.
Okay. Any others?
Do you have tangibles or just verbs? I mean, I was thinking galleries, museums, stages,
Tangibles are good.
performance areas, parks, even festivals.
Okay. Yeah. Tangible or abstract? Yeah.
Expanding.
Okay. Expanding.
Growing, okay.
There's a growing diversity in Dallas.
Okay. Any others? Other ideas?
I'd also add exceptional, very high quality, especially facilities.
Okay.
Innovative.
Okay, innovative.
I don't know if this is more of a question. I don't know if it's seasonal or not. You know, I know, like, let's just say New York City seems to have a seasonal art scene, you know, both in performance and visually.
Okay,
And I'm not sure what this calendar is about Dallas.
it's a good question. Does anyone else here have a sense of whether it's seasonal or not?
Well, I'm involved in dance and ours is very seasonal. It follows the school year, pretty much. So in the summer, there's not that much going on here as far as performance, and we have a hard time if we have an event finding performers and that sort of thing.
Okay. Any other, yes?
We announce the season this September through May
Okay.
for literary events, and then we try to take the summer off, but usually September.
Okay. So generally follows an academic calendar, I guess. So, okay. Well, thanks for posing the question. All right. Collaborative, okay. Education. Other?
You mentioned it's privately financed a lot of the times, and the funding comes from patrons, wealthy patrons. I think that's something that needs to be addressed as far as the future for funding.
Okay.
You know, where are other sources of funding?
Okay.
Inside Dallas or outside Dallas, nationally or globally.
Okay. Funding sources. Others? Okay, well, we can get into these topics some more in our breakout tables. So what we ask that you do is amongst your table groups to talk about some of the following. And we have sheets of paper that we will pass out to you that have these kind of discussion questions on them. But essentially what we're asking you to think about and discuss in your groups is how do you think about space? How do you think of space to create, art or present it or to practice it? How do you think about the people that you're serving, or that you're working with? How do you think about audiences or participants? Skills and training, whether it's education, arts education, or if it's professional development. So in your field and from where you sit in terms of your organizations, how do you think about skills and training? Resources, whether that's financial resources or other resources, volunteers, staff, collaboration, so how do you think about collaboration? What's the state of collaboration? Could there be more, or what kinds of collaborations do you want to see, or would you like to see? And then quality, you mentioned quality, high quality, so what do you think about the quality and the variety of activities or experiences or offerings that there are here in Dallas? So as you think about these different things, we know it's a lot, but kind of, start talking about it amongst your group and see where it takes you. We'll cover whatever you can in the time available, and Lizzie and I will kind of float from table to table and kind of be here for you if you need it. But think about what is missing, because again, what we're trying to get to here is what would you like to see from this cultural plan? What would you like to see in the future? And what can be addressed through this plan? So if you could think about what's missing and what barriers might there be to having a healthy, arts and cultural ecosystem here in Dallas. And if you think of what's missing and what barriers they might be, you could also talk about what might be strategies to address those gaps or those barriers. And then we'd also like to hear from you in your groups. What how would you describe, or how would you define success for this cultural plan? What would mean success to you? That's okay, we've got, it's all, I'm just reading off of this, nothing special. So how would you define success for the cultural plan? That's the last piece. So Lizzie's passed out these discussion guides. What we ask for you to do is, amongst your table group, if you could please identify, or someone who could volunteer to be the note taker in your group. There's a pad and pen on each table. And if you could take notes for your group. And then we will ask them for each group to have one person be the person who reports back. So we're all going to share the top themes from our group discussions in a little while. You talk for about 40 minutes or so, depending on what time it is right now. I think people like about. Yeah. So we'll have a good amount of time in the next 40 minutes or so to go through these questions. And also, if you have a question for one of us, please just wave and we'll come on over. And then we'll let you know probably with sort of like a 5-minute heads up before we come back together to discuss these as a group. Does that sound good? Anyone have any questions? Okay. Well, please go forth and go to it, and wave at us, and we'll come over if you need us. Thank you.
I'll take it. Just like 1% who are basically
Yeah, unless somebody else wants to.
I guess we should go around their name and where they live. Everyone wouldn't mind taking a seat. Grab your coffee. So we're going to start with the share out. If each group could share 3 to 5 ideas that you want to share to the rest of the group, that would be great. So we're just going to go around. You can stand up and stay your table. Yeah. Okay. Yes, you guys can go ahead.
Oh, and a quick question. We're going to ask you to please leave your sheet of notes with us so that we can have all the details.
Okay, my team and I came up with these things. Okay, as far as space goes, we still need the smaller venue that we never got when we first started on the planning of the downtown district. And we got the Moody building, and we were supposed to still get a smaller building, or at least there was talk of it in most of the groups who were there, and I see some of you who were in there from the beginning, and we all voted to have the smaller building, and we got the bigger building. So we still need the smaller building, okay? And that's very, because we still have, even if we could afford the larger building, we still have difficulty scheduling. And we still have difficulty scheduling anyway, because it's like a 2-year out that you have to be on the list. And even then, sometimes, you don't know if you're going to even be existing at that point. So, that doesn't work for smaller groups. All right. Audiences are a bit of a challenge, both because getting down to the arts district is still a stigma for a lot of people. A lot of people don't like going down there. They don't know how to navigate when they get down there. Also, there's still a competition. There's a lot of things going on. How do people find out what and decide what to do? Okay, so we could use help, I think, with some kind of a advertising, marketing thing that helps us all get our news out a little bit more. Okay, resources. We would like to see some out-of-the-box resources for helping smaller arts groups. Not so that we are not just relying on patron donations, because we haven't built up those patron relationships yet as much as some of the bigger groups have. One thing even we were talking about possibly to help build the corporate relationship back up with smaller groups, since they've stopped funding any smaller groups, who will only go to the big groups where they feel like their impact is bigger. Maybe some kind of a break on city tax if they would help fund smaller groups. I don't know, something out of the box to get some resources pulled in for the smaller groups. We need to really vamp up still the story of the impact of the arts on the community and how the smaller groups also are contributing so much to that. Okay, so that everybody in the city understands more and more, yes, these smaller groups are deserving of help, not just the big groups. Okay, and the idea of collaborations being still so very important for visibility for all of us. Not just for visibility, but that would be helpful the more that we collaborate and get more advertising and notice about what we're all doing. And collaboration helps in that end, but also collaboration inspires art. So at the core of it, that's what we're all doing anyway, isn't it? We're trying to bring inspiration to the city. So that's our group.
Would you guys mind going next?
Try to make this as quick as possible because we did a lot of talking. Number one, working with people, small groups of people that we liked, and it was transparency was a really good answer that we gave. It's easier to be transparent among small organizations. Let's see, we create better relationships, motivate each other that way. Going to space, we did talk a lot about space. We found that it's very difficult to find space here in Dallas to do work. It's very unaffordable because of the raising property values. Everybody seems to be struggling with space amongst our area right here. Let's see. 3. The people, the community, staff, they've got limited resources. It was hard to find individuals that had such enthusiasm as we do at times. We talked about evolving and facilitating training to new volunteers and employees for people. Audience. One of the things we talked about is that we do notice in our group, we noticed that there was a diverse economic and demographic type of audience in our arts, and how to kind of bridge that gap a little bit more. Educating the public of certain types of arts, we've noticed because there is a big gap. There's just different views the city has on art. Let's see. That was audience. Skills and training. Where do we go from help? Yeah, we just didn't have a general resource place, a website. Let's talk about how convenient the city of Dallas could, or some cultural city, have a centralized website where we can get all the resources that we need, and it's a collaborative kind of put information in, get information out, talk. And let's see, skills and training. We also talked about sometimes when we go to the city of Dallas, they don't always say the same thing, same answer to us as well. Resources. We're still, once again, not finding a centralized location for our funding for different organizations that are out there, successful organizations, even large organizations that are doing what we're doing. There's just no central location for that kind of resources. Collaboration, we all agreed that that's just very important, and we just need more of it. Let's see. I'm numbered, so difficulty to say. Oh yeah, so what was missing, and what was missing, and was like, it's difficult to say what we should change if we don't even know what's out there available to us. So, and also we felt that there's just a lot of restrictions. We talked about the permitting process in our table a lot, and how there's just a lot of restrictions in that. So that was a synopsis of our conversation. Thank you.
In the corner over there. You guys have a person?
Those are the mines.
We'll throw in things.
Very good discussion, very wide-ranging, and we did pretty much what Jennifer wanted us to do because she sat here. There is one thing that came out at the very beginning and the very end of our discussion, and that was OCA should be liaising with Dallas Independent School District. I'm a very strong proponent of this. I think our future is in jeopardy as artists all. If the next generation doesn't know what the difference between culture and art is, and thank you very much, this standing ovation, and that because we're involved with the public schools, which are doing a fantastic job as is, we need to get the word to the principals and the teachers in your school district that culture and art are essential to their education. That's where we can get into it in the community. It doesn't take OCA. We'd like for OCA to remind us of that, but we also agree with much of what came out of the first tables, the lack of spaces. Phase 2 of the movie has not been built. It needs to be built. It's the 2 black box theaters that we need downtown, but there's no parking. And nobody wants to come down here on Friday night or Saturday night. Other than that, it's a great place. Coaching, please. Coaching.
We're talking about marketing.
Marketing, disaster. There's too much going on. How do we appeal against the giants of publicity? I mean, whether it's toothpaste or combs, we can't do it. Is there an alternative? Hard and seek? Yes. Google? Yes. But you have to, for those, you have to know what you're looking for. And we want people to find us that didn't realize we were there and will be joyful that they ran into us.
And plus we talked about how the hours of black box is not as long.
Oh, the libraries. Yes, the libraries are a coming solution because many of them have black boxes that close at what time? 6 p.m. Right, and that's when everybody's coming home. We want them to be open later for the small theaters, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, I'm not the moderator, but
So I work at the library. They actually do stay open later. You just have to pay for after-hour security. So there is an option to have the later,
yes.
and it's like $30 an hour per guard or something like that. So.
Yeah, how do you get into the system? And the comment was new applicants need instructions on how to do it. That's called life. This is me now. That's called life. If your idea has legs, if you're fulfilling, if you've discovered a niche, then you can probably get help with that in your niche. If you're just an artist wanting to be an artist, it may be more difficult. It's very difficult for OCA to help everyone through the process. The city doesn't pay enough money to OCA to have the staff to do that. So we have to depend on each other. And that is evidently doable. But I think the real key is having an idea of what you want to do and going out there and looking for it.
And we talked about paid versus free event and how it's different crowd attractors and it affects attendance.
Oh yes. If we have to pay, we can't fill seats. This came up especially in word space, which deals with literature. If they don't charge, people will come. If they charge $100, some people will come because there's a meet and greet. But for $35, you probably can't get a ticket. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You guys have a
sure.
spokesperson?
Yes, I am. So I think we all agree, table, that the comments have been made. I will comment specifically about the space issue because we just had a slightly different perspective. Our issues isn't so much about performance space. We use Moody and Latino Cultural Center and other places. but we're representing an orchestra, a dance company, a chorus, and just general citizens, is that we don't have space, or adequate space, or permanent space for rehearsal and for creating. It seems like when Dallas has been busy planning these performance spaces, they forgot that somebody has to create this stuff, and where's that going to be done? If we're the Dallas Symphony Orchestra, we get to rehearse at the Meyerson Symphony Center on stage. Well, not all of us can do that. So we are members of the Salmon Center for the Arts, and so we use that space. It's great. The problem is there's just too many arts groups who need that. So what we'd like to do is duplicate that more than once, because we could all use that type of space. We talked about the Latino Cultural Center. It's a great space, and we know that there's a Plan 2 or Part 2, but the problem is we have a Latino flamingo dance company, and there's no rehearsal space in this building. So this would have been the perfect place to do that, where people could actually work here, not just perform, but work to create art. But that's not possible without a lot of logistics. Some of our big idea solutions is the big question we want to have is, as far as creating that rehearsal space or that working space, is what's going on at Fair Park, specifically in the space that was formerly the Women's Museum, what was the Science Museum. As far as we know, those are empty spaces that could be relatively and easily converted to all sorts of multi-use platforms, and that would solve some of the city's problems as well. We also wanted to, one of the work of architect Kevin Sloan from the University of Texas at Arlington, who talks about building communities within communities. And Dallas right now is singularly focused on the Central Business District, but what about helping the city working and creating smaller communities, like, for example, in Lakewood, and creating performance and rehearsal space in Lakewood or in Oak Lawn, these other neighborhoods that have an identity that you might be able to build an audience with, instead of just being ubiquitous Dallas. Our other big group idea was, and then we got kind of very creative at the end, as far as this community, going out to the community, I'll give this to Bam, she came up with this one, is that we would, like food trucks, you have food trucks that come in, they've been very successful, so why not have an arts truck, an 18-wheelers that would wheel out to various locations. You would have covered performance, and you'd wheel into a neighborhood and provide performance utilities. It's actually a very kind of cool idea. That's our it was getting late. And then finally, but ultimately, all this has to do with, and we know this, and this is really the reason why we came, is that there's just not enough funds that we think that are appropriately allotted to smaller groups. We know that there are big expenses for the Dallas Symphony, the Dallas Opera, these really wonderful groups. But the point is that we could all do a whole heck of a lot with just a fraction of what they're spending. And we hope that the Dallas City offices will think about maybe redistributing some of those funds for smaller groups to use, because I think we can get a lot more bang for the proverbial buck.
One more table.
We're almost at time.
We have.
We'll come back.
Okay, well, a lot of the things I was going to say have been said before, so I'll just kind of reiterate and then add one thing that's new. And one of the big themes was the space, and I think the black box in particular was something that's Greg McBassel needed, and hopefully will be coming soon to the library. I wish she was still here to hear that and know about that. Also, the parking barriers that with space, same topic. The new thing was for OCA to open up the possibility to fund a festival. That was something that had been mentioned, and bring together all the arts disciplines for that festival. To let festivals have an option of being funded. So I think that was about all that we had. Thank you.
Oh, yes. I just want to stand up and defend the OCA, because I've been involved, I'm Karen Casey with the Friends of the Baptist Cultural Center, and I've been involved with the arts since forever. And it used to be the big guys got everything. This is a new day. My hat is off to all those people at the OCA who have worked so hard to, number one, make sure that there was a simpler process to get the money, that there was more money for smaller groups,
The Moody Foundation funds are all going to smaller groups, and it's just, it's a different world than the world was when it was only the big guys downtown and we just got the dregs. And the cultural centers are pretty much fully funded for what they ask for now, and their programming money has increased. So even though, you know, maybe to you and to your group it seems as though there's not enough money, it is so much better than it ever was. And these people really deserve a round of applause for that.
TACA, by the way, is the same. They're distributing much wider now than they have in the past. I know because they cut ours.
I think they cut everyone.
They did.
A couple of wrap-up things. This was one of the best of the conversations I knew it would be, because you folks are not in this for the glory of the money. You are, as small arts groups, you are in it because you love what you do and you love doing it. So thank you for these great comments and ideas. I did want to bring to attention a couple things. I knew space would be really important. It always has been. It continues to be. We're continuing to work with the libraries. What library are you with?
The downtown.
Okay. Yeah, we're continuing to work with the libraries and the black boxes to free up spaces. But one of the things we keep hearing through and through, it's going to be non-traditional spaces. And so it's finding the church or the library or the rec center or the charcoal broiler or the whatever it may be that we can work together. So two really important things. If you go to the Cultural Plan website, you can grab one of these that has the link on it. There's two really important things for you all as small arts groups to do. One, there's a survey, a fairly robust survey that you all as organizations should take, because there's a lot of information there. But second, even more important for your small arts groups, there's a mapping exercise where you go in and enter where you experience arts and culture. So especially those of you like Daniel, who's working in schools and churches and festivals and non-traditional spaces, go in and get those into the inventory of where arts and culture happen in the city. Because as we're collecting that inventory of spaces, we're seeing, wow, there really is a lot of stuff, but I don't know that you may be doing something at this storefront, and when we can get all of that information together, we'll be able to look at it as part of the big picture. So be sure to pick one of these up and do those surveys. Second, we had a question over here about the cultural projects grants. Many of you are to a size of your organizations where you've started applying for what for many, many years has been called the Cultural Projects Program. Then several years ago we put in, because we had this sort of grant program that was for our smallish to mid-sized organizations, but we didn't have anything for the tiny guys. So we put in a grant program called Special Support. And so then individual artists and tiny emerging organizations could access funds. But there was a little bit of a gap between jumping between those two programs. And so what we've done is we've combined those two programs. So really from tiny emerging up to $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 organizations, it's all the same grant program. And in addition, we're going to be doing 2 cycles per year. So rather than having to plan your entire season a year and a half in advance, we're going to do 2 cycles per year. So those of you who don't know what you're going, like Eileen said, we don't know what we're doing 2 years from now, let alone 6 months from now. So we think this will help you. So look on the website. The information's not up. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. I think it's actually going to be summer before those applications go live, but the turnaround's going to be very quick. So it won't be for that whole next season. It'll be August or like an October turnaround. So, but call our office, call any of us at the office. We love what we do and we love helping you all. So please call us up. And what else do we need to do to wrap up?
That's fantastic. 2 more things. One is the demographic survey.
Yes.
If you haven't already filled that out, we really would appreciate it if you could please
is we have been making an effort, and the VC workshop team has been living, eating, breathing this process to try to make sure that people throughout the entire city of Dallas have input into the plan and help shape the plan. And the way that we know if we're actually achieving that is by your filling out the survey to let us know if we're actually reaching all of Dallas. So we really appreciate it if you could do that. And you can drop any of these surveys, right, Lizzie, into these 2 boxes right here on your way out. And the other thing we would really appreciate is you signed in on your way in with your name and contact info. If you wouldn't mind on your way out adding your organization name to it, that would really help us to just know who was here and to, again, appreciate you for taking the time to come and lend your input to this process. Am I forgetting anything else? Okay.
Nope, that's it.
Thank you everyone so much, and I'll just recap the next steps. We're going to be taking the rest, so there's a film workshop, as I think Jennifer mentioned tonight. If you're involved in film in any form, or you know people who are, please send them our way. Tonight, 6:30 or 7 o'clock, we'll start with a panel discussion in a conversation like this. That's at the Texas Theater in Oak Cliff. And then just keep an eye out on the website. There are probably 1 or 2 more workshops kind of happening in the next few weeks. And then essentially we're taking the next month or so to digest all of this input and synthesize it. And in April, we're going to come back and share back to the public what we've learned for the first phase of this process. Sound good?
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
This is William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, please leave comments below, or like, follow, or subscribe to us and get notices of all our videos. We love it, even when you call.